I am an awesome ball of energy. I've had that my whole life. And
is it pleasurable or powerful?
Both.
We will give you that, but where's your emphasis? On the pleasure or the power?
Well, I want my...
Never mind, we'll just answer it. It's on the power. It's on the power. Seminar's great. We ask the question, we give the answer. We ask the question, we give the answer.
I feel the power of it most of the time.
If you want sustaining, lasting power, you have to go for the pleasure. Because here's what happens. If you are willing to do the processes and you can feel the power of it and you're wanting to use the power of it in order to fix this or change this, now you're focused upon you're wanting to fix or change, and you introduce unnecessary resistance, and now you lose the power.
That's what I'm finding that I'm doing exactly.
That's why we're talking about it. It's not just you, a whole lot of people. It's sort of the place where this understanding of these laws has come to in the collective consciousness. A lot of people are tapping into it, and they're finding more productive, effective, efficient, prosperous life experiences, but they are in tension that they don't need to be in. If you're not having a good time, then we're missing the point.
So what I think I'm looking for is a way to fine-tune that. I feel like I've been doing really, really well, getting better at finding the pleasure in it. And this energy that comes forth, it's too much for most people. And it has this edge to it that I don't intend to have to
it's never too much if you're up to speed with it. And it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing with it. If they're not up to speed with it, they don't even notice it. They just think you're weird. You just bounce off. In other words, you can't hook them in and electrocute them. That's the way you're wanting to describe it, because if you're not managing the energy, then they can't take it. It would be like if you're in a room where there's an electrical thing and it's humming and the lights are flashing and blinking because it's not in alignment. It's hard to take. But if you're in a room with awesome power and everything's just flowing fine, you can be in there with no problem. In other words, they don't have to be up to speed with you. You just have to be up to speed with you. And
I think that's where my rub is. I can't, I think I'm not up to speed with my own power, and then I'm introducing resistance as a way to try to control that.
A lot of times you are. You're just too hard on yourself when you're not. That's all. You're having step 1 moments instead of step 5 moments. You're just being too hard on yourself when you're not. That's all right too, but you'll get over that. After a while, you'll just get tired of not feeling good, and you'll figure out another way. But here is something that you might do that would soothe this right away. So let's acknowledge that you already get it, because you do. How to meditate, tune in, allow the daydreams to come. Are you daydreaming a bit? Feeling the power of that. So the other day, Esther asked almost the same question. She was feeling aligned, and yet the segments were not as satisfying as she wanted them to be. And frankly, it's because she had to do things that were not necessarily her first choice in things. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. And we say things and you go blah, blah, blah. We say things like make a decision and line up with it. Because if you make a decision and line up with it, then the resistance is gone, and then it's a pleasurable thing. But if you are going to do something but you haven't lined up with it, then it doesn't feel so good. And so some years ago, we introduced a process called segment intending. And it just means I acknowledge that this is a new segment. If the phone rings, it's a new segment. If I get in my car, it's a new segment. When I get out of my car, it's a new segment. When I sit to do some project, it's a new segment. When I turn on the television, it's a new segment. So the first thing is identify that I'm entering a new segment. And that just means a segment where my intentions have shifted slightly from the last one. So it's new segments all day long. New segment, new segment, new segment. So then we encourage a pausing as you can. Sometimes your life doesn't allow this, but you'll get better and better at it. Pause at the acknowledgement that it's a new segment, and just softly state what you most care about in this segment, what your intentions are. Like if you're in your car, you want to enjoy the ride, you want to flow with the traffic, you want to get there in a timely manner, You might want to discover something that's new and exhilarating. You may intend to listen to something that's uplifting. In other words, it just takes a few seconds to acknowledge what you want, because when you do that, first of all, you're more likely to join in with your inner being who's doing all of those things, or catch yourself if you're not. So it just gets better and better. So the other day, Esther took out a fresh new little notebook, and she decided that she was going to be aware of her segments. And so first thing was ready herself for the day. And she allows 30 to 45 minutes, it depends on whether she's washing her hair or not. So she wrote her segments down. Enjoy my dressing room. She has a new house with a beautiful dressing room. Enjoy the ease of my beautiful closet and wardrobe. Enjoy my magnificent products that I have found for my skincare. Enjoy my delicious new curling iron that will smooth my curly locks to the place that I want them to be. Enjoy opening the drawer where my jewelry is and choosing just exactly what I want to put on my fingers and ears today. Just that much. And listen to something uplifting. She put music on. So now, instead of the usual, got to get ready so I can get out and do something important, got to get ready so that I can get on to the other things that I really need to do, she's in a segment for the pleasure of the segment, and now the segment is just delicious. And then the next segment, and then the next segment, and then the next segment, and then the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day, until she began to realize that she was coming into alignment with the energy that's flowing through her, not slowing it down, speeding up to it. Her most common thing, what do you all say? This is a funny thing, you're gonna like this. What do you all say when you're with other people and you want to go to the bathroom? Don't you say, I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick? Like you're doing something wrong to break away from what's going on. Like you shouldn't go do that. So Esther would say, I'm gonna go get ready real quick, which means getting ready is not an important segment. It is not a segment in which I should allow myself any pleasure. This is a segment of maintenance. This is a segment of responsibility. So I'll go do this real quick and then I'll get on with the important stuff. No. Every segment is important, because every segment you have the option of lining with source or not. And so after she played with that for a day, and then another day, and then another day, and then another day, all that angst went away, and she found herself feeling so good about her life, and things just flowed so much more easily. It's like the lights changed for her and the doors opened for her. The entire universe cooperated with her, because for the first time on lots of those little unimportant segments, she was cooperating with herself instead of holding herself hostage. You see, this is an example of someone who has not quite yet given herself permission to do the things that are important for her to do. I should be serving the world. I should be writing some books. I should be doing the twice monthly. I should be talking to my employees. I should be, well, maybe she wants to do all of those things. And if she does, we want her to do them in pleasure. But she also should put her toes in the swimming pool, and maybe even her whole body, and she should warm up the swimming pool, and she should set the jacuzzi, and she should spend 10 minutes if the shower feels good to her. You see what we're getting at? And most of you have not given yourselves permission to feel pleasure in this segment and this one and this one. Now stay with us for a moment, because you know what happens? If this segment you allow pleasure, or this segment you pat yourself on the back because you're diligent and hardworking and accomplishing, but this segment you don't because you're loafing or relaxing, then what happens to the continuity of your life? What happens to the momentum? You allow it, and then you stop it, and then you allow it, and then you stop it, and then you allow it, and then you stop it, and then you allow it, and then you stop it. That's that tug of war that you're describing, because you keep summoning it, but then you don't let it flow. For whatever reason, you don't let it flow because somebody a long time ago gave you a hard time for taking too long while you got ready. You see?
So if I, in doing these little appreciations, little pre-pavings for the segment intending.
Pre-paving meaning getting out ahead of it. That's really good.
We'll bring bring me up to speed with that energy, and then in turn I won't introduce as much resistance?
Usually you're up to speed as you enter the segment, but now you're going to stay up to speed through the segment. And we just got to tell you, most of you don't stay up to speed in very many segments of your experience, because you let life as it comes to you dictate how you feel, because you knee-jerk respond rather than being out ahead of it with your intentions. You are the perfect opportunity for us to have this conversation, because you sat here feeling the tension of resistant thought instead of the pleasure of non-resistant thought. That's exactly what you were describing. And the thing that trips you up is that it's effective to a certain extent. In other words, you can get in tension and you can deal with resistance, and compared to a lot of other people that aren't trying at all, you can look like you've got a lot of things going on. But that tension wears you out, it wears you down, it takes the fun out of life, and most of all, it jerks you around in that you flow and then you don't, and then you flow and then you don't, and then you flow and then you don't. Do you like anything more than when a good idea drops into your mind and you know it's a good idea and it's too soon to act on it, it's just a good idea, it just feels so good? Jerry wrote a paper, keep your ideas to yourself until they're fully developed, because he'd had that experience and he'd watched so many people he was mentoring who would have those feelings, and then they'd talk to somebody about them and that person would say, really? You're going to do that?
Yeah, that tends to screw it up a bit, talking to people about it.
Don't introduce unnecessary resistance, which means mind your own business and don't open the door for them. There's a really nice lady that Esther knows from the hotel, and when Esther came out of the doorway, she was in the hallway, and Esther really didn't want to talk to her. She did not want to break her Abraham mojo. And so Esther just smiled and walked really fast, which made her look maybe like she didn't want to talk to her, which she didn't want to talk to her. Not because she doesn't adore her, but because it wasn't the best thing for Esther. And hardly any of you do that. Esther usually doesn't do that. She was just still under our influence. Usually Esther would stop and give herself over to whoever was there. She'd be helping with the short orders in the room service.
The more I am under that influence, the less I'm going to care what somebody else is thinking and get myself out of the flow.
It isn't that you don't care. It's that you care about their solutions, not their problems. You care about where they're going, not where they are. It's a whole different deal. You care about the things that uplift you, so that now when you're holding them as your object of attention, you know they've got this, even though they don't know it yet. You know it. You don't let them talk you into their doubt. For a while, it may mean you need to avoid them until you've really got your sea legs. But once you're really tuned in, tapped in, turned on, then you can dart in, dart out, dart in, dart out, dart in, dart out. Everything that you feel is your relationship between you and you. And the other people that you think it's about, that's not what it's about. It's just your relationship between you and you.